I've been posting some photographs of my vintage computer equipment on social media recently, and one of my friends commented on the SD card adapters I was using to load games from. I was demonstrating an SD to IEC adapter for the Commodore 64, and he asked whether there was a similar solution for the Acorn Electron, as he's a bit of an Electron fan. I explained there was the excellent ELK64 SD. It's one of a handful of modern peripherals to the Electron by Ramtop Retro. I've included a link in the description to their website. This got me thinking about vintage computers in a tapeless age, and how enthusiasts have adapted them to use more modern solutions. There are a number of reasons why tapeless solutions are more convenient. Cassette tapes and players are not exactly as common as they were. A tape collection can take up a lot of space. There are thousands of digital copies of classic games on the internet, primarily for use in emulators. Older media is prone to deterioration, and this is a great way to preserve old cassettes. Not to mention slow and unreliable loading and saving. Don't get me wrong, there's still a huge market trading classic games on cassette, and there is a certain amount of nostalgia loading a game on original equipment. Even now, new games are being duplicated on cassette for that reason. I do have an original Acorn tape deck that was donated along with a couple of BBC micros. As you can see, it's in a very sorry state. I will try to refurbish this at some point, as there are a couple of tapes I'd like to recover, and that will be the subject of a future video. Anyway, back to the Electron and the ELK64 SD. This is an ELK64 SD peripheral device. It uses normal FAT32 formatted SD cards up to 8 GB in size, and it connects directly to the Acorn Electron expansion port via this connector. Before I plug it in, I'll just boot my Electron up without the ELK64 SD connected so that you can see the Electron's normal boot screen. There we go. Acorn Electron, a little bit of a natty Acorn icon, basic and a flashing cursor. So that's basically on an expanded Acorn Electron. When connecting this device to the Electron, it's important that you disconnect the power first. There's also a keyway here to ensure that you connect this the right way round onto the Electron's edge connector. So I'm going to disconnect the power. Flick the Electron over. You can see the edge connector there with the slot, and that should just connect like so. There we go. So we'll reconnect the power now and boot the Electron with the S64 SD connected. As you can see, when you boot the Electron with the device plugged in, there are some extra messages on the boot screen. The most obvious one is Electron MMFS, SWRAM, EPP, RH+1. That's the filing system initializing. You may have also noticed at the top 64K. In addition to adding a full-size SD card slot to your Electron, this peripheral expands the computer from 32K to 64K of RAM. The ELK64 SD uses emulator SSD disk image files that can be downloaded readily from the internet. It uses the MMFS filing system, which means that you need to merge the SSD image files into a single beeb.mmb file stored on the SD card using software on a PC. so it's not quite as straightforward as dragging and dropping individual files onto the SD card. It also adds some extra Acorn functionality, 4 16K sideways banks, 2 in RAM and 2 in the peripheral's internal flash memory. By default, the MMFS filing system occupies the first of those 16K flash banks, and it copies itself into the first of the RAM banks on boot. That leaves 2 16K sideways slots available to the user, 1 in RAM and 1 in flash memory. And in case you were wondering what MMFS is an abbreviation for, it was originally written by Martin Mather in 2012, so I assume it is Martin Mather Filing System. I reckon most people will be content browsing the games that are preloaded on the Beeb MMB file available for download on Ramtop Retro's site. All the classic games are there, including Arcadians, Elite, FRAC and many more. These are all accessible from a game menu that is launched using the command *dboot0, like so. For example, I can load Elite like this. Navigate to games beginning with E by pressing F7 and then E, and launch Elite by pressing the letter R. And you can see how quick it loads. However, there's much more to this device than just plain preloaded games. As it has an SD disk filing system built in, you can save and load your own programs to it. MMFS is built on the concept of disks, and these are stored within the beeb.mmb file on the SD card. There's a maximum of 511 disks that can be formatted and used as you see fit. If I use the command d3, like so, you can see my SD card has 278 unformatted disks. The rest are taken up by the games. To access the disks, you've got to virtually insert them into a drive, and that is done using the din command, disk in, I guess. There are 4 virtual drives numbered from 0. I can see what disks are in each of these virtual drives by using the following command, ddrive. If I execute the following commands, din 500 and *, I've inserted disk 500 into drive 0. The default, as I've not specified the drive number as a second parameter. The * is a standard BBC Basic disk command for listing the contents of a disk. Here you can see that I've got a handful of programs that I've saved on disk 500. These virtual disks are not formatted by default. If I go to disk 501 and list the directory, you can see I get an error. I can format that the usual way. This will format the disk in drive 0, which I've selected previously as 501, in 80 track format, whatever that means in the disk's age. Let's just wait a second for that to finish formatting. There we go. And I can give the disk a title as an aid memoir. So if I do a * now, you can see there's no title. So let's give it a catchy title. There we go, it's called My Progs. I can then save and load programs to this disk using the save and load commands like this. So first I'll write a quick program. Check that works. Let's save it to the disk. And there we go, that's saved as hello there. So I can now turn the power off. Switch back on again. Go to disk 501. Load the program in. And carry on where I left off. There are many more commands available to the user for manipulating disks. This should give you a flavour of how powerful this is. So there we have it. As mentioned before, the SD card has many advantages. It is quick, reliable, and I think, most original titles released for the Electron taking up little more space than a postage stamp. I'll be covering other modern storage solutions for vintage computers in future videos. If you like what I'm doing, then please subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.